Hey, welcome to Crazy Beats Big. This is a podcast powered by Rhino. I'm hosting today. I'm Kevin Romeo. I'm really excited because we're having Bryan Papé on, who is the founder and CEO of MiiR, which is a really awesome premier drinkware company. And backstory on Bryan, I actually, when we started our coffee shop here at Rhino called Civil House, our director of coffee, Mac, was really excited about MiiR and wanted to use MiiR products. But we weren't able to pull the trigger quick enough once we started the company. So we've been following them for a while just as fans. And then I was at Catalyst University here in Kalamazoo back in, I think, January. And Bryan was one of the speakers. A good speaker. He's an entrepreneur, though, first. And what I love about that is I really connect with, when I go to a conference or event, I connect with people who aren't actually just speakers and authors first, but they're actual practitioners of the business or the philosophies they're espousing. Not that authors and speakers who are just that professional by trade don't do that, but there's something for me in the authentic sharing of stories from entrepreneurs to those conferences I really connect with. So I'm excited about talking with Bryan. And also, fun fact, he was so good at sharing his personal story that probably 5 minutes into his talk, I ended up getting out and leaving the talk because he talked about when he got in an accident skiing and broke his femur, and the thoughts are running through his mind when he was laying on the ground thinking he might die. And his, at that time, girlfriend came across his mind, and he realized that he needed to spend more time and focus on what's important in life, and he needed to make her his wife. And it made me think about my wife and how I work so much, and I wanted to prioritize our relationship better than I had in the past. So Bryan really, his story spoke to me, and I ended up leaving halfway through his talk and then going and talking to my wife and calling her and stuff. So super excited to have Bryan on and hear about his story and how he created this company and lessons he's learned along the way. So Bryan, how are you doing, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, for sure. So to give you a little bit of backstory, Bryan, too, like what this is and what we're doing on this podcast is celebrating stories of entrepreneurship. The title of it is Crazy Beats Big. And what we like to tell people is that the idea for the podcast came about from a childhood story of mine where there was a kid on the schoolyard that was getting bullied, and everyone's had that in their school experience. They've seen that, or they were that person. And I witnessed this firsthand, that this kid kind of just was taking it for a long time and always getting picked on, until one day he just snapped and he kind of went off on the bully and really made short work of him and taught him a lesson. And I always stuck in the back of my mind that in a fight, if you're willing to go there, you can take on anything. And so the name Crazy Beats Big kind of stuck with me. And so we loved it for this entrepreneurial metaphor because I think a lot of people think that they can't overcome the big obstacles in their life to get things done. And so you seemed like a perfect person to talk to after we started learning about you and your story and your company. So given that, go ahead and tell us like how your story goes and what big obstacles you've faced. Just kind of tell us your story. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I love that kind of metaphor because starting off something. There's always people bigger than you. There always will be, for the most part, unless you become big. And I think you're actually more vulnerable and capable of losing when you are big, because that's when you get kind of stuck in routine and you get comfortable. And when you're comfortable, that's not a good place to be. So
yeah.
So my story. Specifically with MiiR is really a culmination of life experiences for me. So, I grew up observing my grandfather, who started this company on the West Coast. And he started after World War II, started off with one shop in Eugene, Oregon, where he was essentially selling Caterpillar equipment, heavy equipment.
Nice.
And he grew that business up on the West Coast. Now it spans all the way from San Diego to Alaska. And they sell forklifts and genie lifts, and my uncle was the CEO after my grandfather, and now my cousin is the CEO. And I'm not involved in the family business at all, but I was witness to it growing up. So
nice.
I saw it firsthand, and I saw the impact that my grandfather had. And I was always kind of entrepreneurial growing up, so that kind of played out in later years that I'll touch on. And
sure.
for me, I've always kind of had this idea of merging business and philanthropy. And part of that reason was my grandfather passed away in 96, and in 97, my grandma started a foundation in his honor. So from an early age, I was kind of exposed to philanthropy and granting and helping kind of positively impact communities where we lived. And so, the kind of the traditional model is, you grow a business, and then when you have and you've generated wealth and you've amassed wealth, then you give back, and then you help out. And so, I've always kind of been drawn to what happens if you don't make it to the end of your life. And specifically for me, in 2006, about 3 years before I started MiiR, I was involved in a really bad skiing accident. Ended up hitting a tree while I was filming, and broke my femur. And for those who don't know what happens when you break your femur, if you hit your femur, it's the biggest bone in your body, and it can actually hit your femoral artery, which is one of the main arteries that runs from your heart out to your body. And so if you hit that artery, you sever it, you can bleed to death in about 10 minutes. And so, I had this life or death experience in 2006, and it was pretty eye opening for me. At the time I was, I kind of refer to myself as a tool. Lots of other words could describe me. But I was the guy that just wanted to make a bunch of money and look out for me as number one. I certainly, didn't want to be like that, but it was just who I was. And so 2006, had the skiing accident, clarified a lot of things for me in my life. When I was sitting against that tree, it's one of those things where I think ignorance is bliss. If I would not have known about the femoral artery and all that, I think I might not have had such a clarifying moment. But I was really lucky to be alive. And what I mean by that is my roommate at the time, he had done something similar 2 years earlier. And he had survived, came back from the hospital and said, hey, never break your femur, because if you do, you can die in 10 minutes. So here I am laying against this tree thinking, oh my gosh, I could die here in 10 minutes because I don't know if I've hit my artery or not. And so, two things kind of came to mind. It was actually very calm. The first part of it was very I think just adrenaline kicks in, and, my leg's off to the right, and it's pretty wild. And the first thing I thought about was, I'd been dating my wife for 3 years. And I thought, my now wife, and so obviously we weren't married while we were dating.
I was trying to put that together, and then I realized.
Yeah, you're like, what? And so, I was like, man, this woman's incredible. And that kind of just shows how much of a tool I was. Like, it took me breaking my leg to be like, all right, I should probably marry her. So that gives you a little bit of context. She saw past a lot of my insecurities of who I was trying to be and stuck around. So. We ended up getting married a year later. We've been married 11 years since then. We have a beautiful little girl, another one on the way this summer. So, that was obviously a good decision. She's incredible. She actually works at the brand as well.
Nice.
We work together, which is super fun. And then the second thing I thought about was, what would people say about me at my funeral? And I don't know why that came into my head, but it just struck me like, someone who's very conscious about themselves. I just thought about it, and I realized that nobody would have gotten up like at my grandfather's funeral, and said, amazing things about who I was. Nobody would have said anything great. They would have said, Brian's a funny guy. I was a jokester. I was a prankster. Like, that would have been who I was in my funeral. And it really struck me because I wanted to be somebody like my grandparents. And so, that kind of shaped and formed what I wanted to do moving forward. At that time, I was a part owner of a company called Little Hottie's Hand Warmers. Sold these air activated hand warmers, they were at Costco, REI. Y'all are out in the Midwest. I think we were selling to, like MC Sports and a bunch of other,
Rest in
when
peace.
they were still around. Yeah. So I was there. We ended up selling the brand in 2009, and that was my opportunity. I learned a ton. That was a whole nother crazy experience in my life, where at the ripe age of 19, 20, I was the first employee at that company. Rick, the founder, my business mentor, was his best friend. So I had this really unique opportunity. I was flying to China back and forth at 20, barely graduated from college, because I was having a firsthand experience of how to build a business, how to run a business. And so I ended up selling the brand in 2009. That's when I saw this opportunity in the drinkware space, in the bottle space, which, as you see now, bottles are everywhere now. So we were around back in the day with, it was kind of like Stanley and Sig and Nalgene, and now it's like Yeti and Swell and Hydro and this company and that company, everyone that's trying to copy them. So we've flown under the radar a little bit, which has kind of been nice, But that was the opportunity was for me to design a better looking bottle, more functional. Most of the products in the market were all our secondary uses. So like the SIG bottle was a fuel canister in Europe for a while for backpacking stoves, got converted to a bottle. So you have this aluminum vessel, which is toxic. Then it's lined with plastic to prevent the toxic aluminum from touching your beverage, which to me was like kind of an odd choice.
Yeah.
The whole plastic BPA thing was happening there. So, now I grew up on Nalgene's backpacking. The plastic turned out to have BPA in it, which can lead to horrible things. So that whole thing kind of led me to be like, let's make a steel bottle. Let's make it really functional, kind of studied how people use products.
Yeah.
I was not I didn't go to school like studying design. My mom was in design. I kind of learned aesthetics through her, but just logical. Okay, when you take your bottle, you stick it in a cup holder, you drink from it, you put ice in there, like let's build something around those daily uses. And so built our first bottle and then really wanted to be able to give every single day, something that we would do day in and day out, not wait until 10 years, 20 years from now when the brand was successful to give. And so start off from day one giving. And so the idea was how do we merge business and philanthropy? One thing led to another. We learned about the clean water crisis, where close to 1 billion people lack access to clean water. Started there, went to Liberia in 2011. So we launched the brand in 2010. And it's funny. I always say we, like there's this whole team of people, it was me. Like my wife was there, at the beginning. She was working for Morgan Stanley, bringing home the bacon.
Nice. It's good to have
so to speak. So it was great. So she helped us get us on our feet, launched the brand in 2010. 2011, went to Liberia, Africa, had this amazing experience of seeing the need firsthand of really giving people transformational experiences through clean water. So
awesome.
From there, the brand's taken a lot of different turns and, we've expanded, we've clarified things. At one point we had a bicycle line, we had bags, we still have some bags left, some journals, but drinkware has kind of always been our core to who we are as a brand. And so, came back from that trip, and from that trip, we really came up with this fairly innovative idea where I was showing photos from that first giving trip to some friends. And one of my friends, who was our first customer on our website, said, wait, so the bottle that I bought funded this clean water project? And I was like, yeah, you're right. It totally did. So this huge light bulb went off over my head where, nobody was showing the connection between doing good and selling a product. And so I thought that's an opportunity for us to actually be transparent, do something different in the marketplace. And so now every single one of our products has a code on it. You can register it. You can follow along the giving initiatives that our company does, from clean water and health to food and sustainable systems to transportation and education. So
nice.
That's kind of where we are now. We've grown tremendously since 2010. We have a retail store in Seattle. And the idea there was we're selling drinkware, we're selling to coffee shops, we're selling to breweries. We needed to open up a new office because we had outgrown our space. And so then we said, wow, what if we opened an office with a retail presence? And then we started, okay, if we did retail, what would it look like? And we wanted it to be different. So it's kind of 3 parts. It's a retail store, it's a cafe, and a co-working space. So it's a very experiential retail space. And it wasn't always easy, but it's getting a lot of traction now, which is fun. So
nice. So there's a couple things.
That's kind of the short story.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. There's a couple things in there I want to expand upon. So I think I told this before, but something that's just, I think, cool is, and I want to get into this part of it too, but I heard you speak at an event, and when you were telling your story, I actually left halfway through or partway through your talk because I was so inspired by the moment that you had out on slopes when you broke your femur. And you said you had this moment of clarity of how important your soon-to-be wife was to you, and that you needed to, I think you kind of phrased it along the lines like you needed to treat her better by committing to her or whatever. And I literally got up and walked out of your talk, and I called my wife and I was like, I just want you to know I really love you, and I'm sorry for how much I've been working and stuff. So it's pretty emotional. And I didn't get to hear the rest of your talk, but I've been able to kind of look online and see some of your other presentations and stuff. So I got a little bit of the insight there, but so thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And I think a couple things I wanted to just touch on. So you mentioned how your business has kind of like expanded in some offerings, but then maybe it sounded like you kind of pulled back from some of that. Like, I don't know if you're still offering, I don't think you're still offering like bikes or some of the bags you said you're kind of phasing that out, it sounded like. So I'd love to go into that a little bit about your strategy and like how that started and when you started to, that accordion effect where you're going into new opportunities. And then after you hit that moment, you're like, maybe we should pull back and stick to our core. A lot of business owners struggle with that. And so, and me personally, so for context too, and I think you know a little bit about us as a company, but Rhino, basically we call ourselves a story company. We're video production, animation, 2D and 3D stuff. So really it's all about creating experiences around storytelling, but through video and animation and photo. But there's always opportunities to expand that into other areas and other arenas of storytelling. And I'm very guilty of wanting to pursue those opportunities. And I think anyone who's kind of entrepreneurial, it's so hard to keep it focused. So I think it'd be really valuable to hear your take on how you navigated those waters.
Yeah, I mean, it's been for sure a work in progress and a massive learning component as we've grown the brand, because my temptation is I'm an idea guy. Like, I can come up with ideas. I can come up with 20 ideas today, and they could, half of them could be fantastic.
And they're all awesome.
But
yeah,
100% of them. But you take one idea and it can be a distraction, and so it's hard because there's a lot of great ideas out there, and especially if you've built a brand that's somewhat flexible, it does allow you that. But it's all about the right time and the right opportunities. It's more about saying no to the things that aren't going to distract you and saying yes to the things that you're really good at, and how do you expand upon that. So to give a little bit of context to the listeners, so we came back from that trip in Liberia in 2011. We saw this incredible need for clean water, mobility, education. There's so many needs, and so the idea was, how do we help with this transportation piece? I had met somebody who had a bicycle, and they said they were able to get to and from work where they couldn't before because they had to walk and it was too far and they couldn't get there on time, et cetera, et cetera. So I was like, oh my gosh, how do we get people more onto more bikes? And so came over from that trip super inspired. I was kind of like, what if we, the bottles give clean water? What if we did the bikes and they help get bikes, and that sort of thing. And that's started bouncing it off people. Yeah.
That's actually really interesting. I want to jump in because another one of the things I want to touch on is how connected to a why value you are as a company, and the whole idea of like, what big problems are we solving? And almost in a way, what I'm hearing you say is, and you can clarify if you're not saying this, but your why can be a lot of different things, right? And so maybe it causes you to see opportunities, but then you have to have your business mind back on and go, okay, yes, we want to do all these wonderful things, but it has to make sense for our core business, because I think in Simon Sinek's book, he references, if the train industry had thought about their why as transportation and moving people where they need to get to, maybe they would have invested into airplanes. But I'm drastically paraphrasing that story. Yeah. But it's almost like it causes you to look at things in a sense of a very optimistic light. But you have to have that ebb and, or not ebb and flow, but the push and pull of what's pragmatic to your core business and the dreamer side of you, maybe. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're right. But it's hard because like our mission statement as a company, which is inscribed in our office and on everything that we do, allows for flexibility. So our mission statement is we exist to empower people with access to a better future.
Right.
And so like giving people bikes absolutely fits into that, Mm-hmm. And so the challenge is, we came back super inspired, bounced it off people. My wife's like, I don't know, bikes sounds like a liable thing. Our attorney's like, absolutely not. Don't do it. Bicycle insurance, people falling off, suing you, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then one of my good friends introduced me to another guy who had actually started a bike company. It was more of a mountain bike company, downhill bike company. And just shared with him, hey, I had this, experience. I'd love to figure this out. Like, I don't want to innovate on bikes. I just want to innovate the model of like selling bikes and helping get people bikes. Like, no one's doing this. And he was like, man, I love that. He goes, I think you're crazy, but I'll help you. And he and his wife had adopted a girl from Ethiopia. And so they had gone over there for about a month and experienced the need and really the transformational effect of people getting on bikes and getting to and from places. And so, he kind of stoked the fire, and I was like, well, well, we need to have a good customer. And I knew that I didn't want to go and sell to a bunch of independent bike dealers. Independent bike dealers, God bless them. It's a passion business. But a lot of them struggle. A lot of, they're barely making it. They need dating from Specialized and Trek and all these other companies of 300 days, meaning they don't want to pay for the inventory for almost a year because it takes them that long to sell a bike. And so I was like, well, I don't want to go that route. So we got samples made, went to a trade show, pitched REI and said, hey, this is the concept we want to sell exclusively to you guys. Ended up getting the deal done with REI. So they actually launched our bikes in like 5 stores, and it was 15, 20, and then eventually went to all stores for about 2 years. Wow. And then they kind of remapped their strategy of bikes and said, hey, we're actually going to, exit the MiiR line. And at that point, we had kind of been like, all right, we got all our eggs in one basket. It's going okay. It's cool. It kind of adds this weird, component to the brand. Yeah.
It somewhat so maybe made did it make you feel validated at all? I don't know if you're like me, but sometimes as a business owner, you have insecurities around like, yeah, I do this one thing really well, but I kind of want to have a little bit more to what I offer than that. So maybe,
and at the time, 2011, 2012, a lot of brands didn't start popping until the last couple of years. But like at that point I had seen, Hydro Flask, the founder, sell out at, for not much money and got absorbed by private equity. Swell was starting to kind of creep up and get really popular. So there were these big competitors in the drinkware space. Yeti entered into space in 2015, which a couple years later. But in my head, I was like, oh shoot, we better diversify. Or we're going to get squashed by these. So, there was the other theory of like, okay, let's diversify, create this lifestyle brand. And create some defensibility around the idea of doing good, no matter what the product is. So logically, it made sense. The challenge is when you have a small team and you're selling drinkware and bikes, and then we got into bags, which made sense. Bikes, bottles, bags, this lifestyle thing that made sense. We're like, oh, journals. Some of our customers will carry that too. The challenge is when your team's small, you got to have a product line manager for kind of each category. Each new category has 1 or 2 vendors, which then you have to audit. So then your audit fees go up because we really hold ourselves to a high standard as far as like who we work with and internationally. So then that that gets more expensive. Marketing team has to constantly think about how they're going to market all these products. So it's almost easier when there's like 4 people, but at that time we were like kind of getting to the 15, amount of people. And so it's just hard to like really get people on board to different categories of products. So we kind of expanded this lifestyle thing, and a lot of our employees internally, we're pretty transparent and always ask for open honesty. And a lot of people were like, we got to get out of these products and just like, we're winning on the drinkware space within, Patagonia and REI and Amazon. Like we have these amazing customers, like let's focus. And so that's what we did. We had this kind of, offside of clarity.
That's awesome.
Decided, while we might not be the biggest drinkware company in the world, and certainly probably not even in the top 5, we're probably one of the best. And it's a bold statement to say, but you look at some of the accounts that we work with, Patagonia, Blue Bottle Coffee, Starbucks, and it's not private label, it's MiiR branded, co-branded with these companies. And the feedback that we're getting, it's like, we might not be the biggest, but we are one of the best. And so let's lean into that. Let's focus, let's clarify, let's free up mental resource and not have to think about all these other components of bikes, bags, And the thing that sucks is like our bags, man, our reviews were crazy good. Our customers loved our bags. They're like, don't get rid of the bags, And it was tough, but it was definitely the right thing. And, we might get into some additional categories in the future when we see fit. But what I know now is that when we do that, we will plan and say, okay, if we're going to go into this category, we're going to go out and hire an expert who's done this at other companies. Let's just call it like t-shirts, right? Like if we do that, we're going to be like, all right, we're going to go in and find the person that knows how to like run a product line supply chain for a t-shirt, and then we're going to find the sales team person that like has sold this before. So we're going to go in with eyes wide open and then map it out and do a much better job. So it was a huge learning curve for sure. But the team, you ask anybody in the team here, and it's like, I'm constantly like, what about this idea? What about that idea? And a lot of times it's like, no. And then every once in a while we have like, oh yeah, let's check this out. Yeah.
Hey man, props to you for having the humility to listen to your team, because a lot of leaders really struggle with that. I think exemplifying that and saying like asking for feedback, and I think that's critical. I think when you and I talked last time, you mentioned Pat Lencioni, same thing. I think Pat like really speaks on that a lot about asking for feedback and really meaning it. And so that's an awesome example of you that playing out in action. So
Yeah, and it's
Props.
not easy, thank you, for any leader out there who either hasn't done or is trying to do it or wants to do it. It's super it's not easy, but it's, what I've learned in life is a lot of things that are worth doing aren't easy. Marriage, starting a business, transparency, a lot of feedback, it's not easy, but it's important. We ask ourselves every quarter 3 questions that go out to the entire company. What should we stop doing? What should we start doing? What should we keep doing? And we've been doing that for about 2 years, and it's been one of those things that for us, it's been really clarifying. Your boots on the ground, so to speak, your frontline employees, they see it firsthand. So people in our store, it's hard enough to sell coffee and beer in bottles, but to be a bike mechanic too is impossible. And you're like, well, maybe we had one person who could do it. you know.
Yeah.
So it's really important to get that feedback from our employees. And what's cool is over the last year and a half of asking those questions, we've gotten a lot of good information from those questions that we make decisions on. And from there, it's really allowed us to grow as a company. So super hard, but really important.
That's killer, man. So another thing I want to touch on a little bit, and I think you're really good at this, and I just want to encourage you that way. But so I think a lot of people want to build a brand like MiiR, and a brand that has this really strong why value, really cool story behind how the founder story part of it, and how they came to be, and the mission they're on, and all that. And you guys seem to do that really well. And so I think what I want to dig into a little bit is how you decided to start telling your story, and actually, because I saw you at an event and you spoke at a conference. So I guess I'd like to dig in a little bit, how you decided to do that, and how you said, I'm going to go for this and be that guy who goes out and speaks and shares our story. And then on the flip side, I'd also love to hear how you're making that work without overexhausting yourself, or, your wife's not frustrated with you. Because my wife, it's a constant thing where we're talking about my schedule. I spent the last few days in New York, and I'm in Kalamazoo, and we travel all the time. So I'd love to hear, just entrepreneur to entrepreneur, how you make that work. So start with how you made the decision to become a storyteller and speaking at conferences and such. How'd that start?
Yeah. Well, thanks for the kind words. I really do appreciate it. So we put a lot of work and effort into it. It's been a journey for sure. To be honest, when I first started MiiR, this story has always existed of this clarifying moment in my life, and I was actually quite not much shy, but I wouldn't really share it, because to me it was very personal. It was this thing that had happened to me, and I don't want to feel like I'm publicizing this, this thing to make people think I'm special, because, we literally had a publicist, and I was like, this story is, it's super personal to me and my family and who I was. And being, not only being vulnerable to the fact that pre-accident, I was a tool, I kind of don't want to talk about that. Yeah. And they were like, no, but that's real. So I kept getting these encouragement, that's a real story. You're a real person. And the other hesitation was, I'd gone to conferences, and, you listen to people speak and listen to podcasts, and you think these people are just, super brilliant. And a lot of them are very, very, very brilliant, and you're like, wow, these people, they're on this stage that's so high and so big that I could never get to that. And so, but then I started meeting a lot of these people, and it's like, man, everybody's just, everybody wakes up for the most part, takes a shower, takes a dump, drinks coffee, there's a lot of differences between us for sure. But there's this human element, and so, I got encouraged, to kind of start sharing my personal story a little bit more, and strategic, there is a strategic element to this for sure. And that, a lot of our competitors are owned by private equity or venture capitalists. Right. And so there's this really good and intense focus on the product, or, the technology or whatever it is. And that's great. And we certainly do that too with product and whatnot, but there's this human element that you can interact with your customers in a way that feels real, or that is inspiring, and kind of motivate. So that was a very intentional piece of let's use this story. We almost view it as a third person. My story is this other Bryan, and it's a super kind of weird way, but when we think about it, we'll have team meetings. We're like, oh yeah, Bryan, you'll be at this conference. You're going to share this story. We're going to interject product with this company and do this, and we'll have you share and blah, blah, blah. And I almost think about it let's do that. but not in like, oh yeah, we're going to go tell like my story and I'm going to get all these followers and whatever. It's really about growing the business, and inspiring others to hopefully kind of do the same. And so far it's been amazing. And what I mean by that is, I've had multiple people come up to me, whether it's conferences, Instagram, Twitter, literally say they started their company because of what we've done and because of being inspired by my story. And it's like, to me, that's the greatest achievement almost in life, besides having a kid, is, to inspire somebody else to take positive action and improve the world. Like, that's amazing. Like, I don't need people to buy more stuff. Like, I want people to do things. Right. And so, that was a huge kind of booster of confidence, that it's not just me kind of talking this echo chamber or just droning on and people listening to me, but people are actually like taking that. And like you walked out of this conference and went and called your wife. Like, that to me makes it all worthwhile. And then about 3-4 years ago, Jeff from Plywood Supply. I don't know if you follow them out of Atlanta.
I'm familiar with the Plywood Presents. Plywood Presents.
And Jeff just does a great job there. And somebody had referred me to him or something, and he's like, hey, we just want you to come and speak. And I was like, well, I've never spoken. I've like talked to people and I share my story in sales meetings. He's like, that's okay. Like, just come and speak. And I'm like, okay, how many people are gonna be there? He's like, a couple thousand. I'm like, oh my gosh, I better practice.
Yeah. Let me run through my lines.
Let me run through this real quick. And so, but what's interesting is, it's always been somewhat second nature because it's my story. Right. And so, it twists and turns here and there depending on the conference, if it's sales focused or marketing focused or story whatever the focus is. But for the most part, it was relatively easy because it was just me sharing my story. And so when I got nervous about it, my wife's like, it's just your story, like just share it, And so that was so I literally like went to that event, and then I kid you not, like before that event, then I got asked to speak at this other event at Outdoor Retailer, one of our main trade shows. Exact same thing, like share your story. So literally presented at Plywood Presents in the morning, flew from Atlanta to Salt Lake, got off the plane, went to this other event, spoke to the same amount of people. And then, and then from there it kind of snowballed. And then I was out in Kalamazoo speaking at the Catalyst U event, which is amazing. And I've had a couple speaking events between there. I'm headed to Santa Cruz to speak at another event in June. Nice. And then it kind of stops for a little bit while we have a second kid.
Man, congrats.
Yeah, thanks. So it's kind of been this like ebb and flow, and the speaking piece really has become an opportunity for us to not only get the word out there, but also our business. Everybody drinks water, right? So really everybody's a potential customer. And so it's strategically an opportunity for us to kind of authentically get the word out to people around the world, around the US. And we also partner with a lot of businesses. So, I'll go and speak, and they'll have, I don't know about flood, but we'll definitely have businesses, inquiring from, HP to whoever else saying, hey, we want to partner with you all on whether it's a corporate gift or retail opportunity. We want to be a part of this. And so for us, it's strategic in that it's good for business. Yeah. The challenge is, as you know, like when you travel a lot, it can be somewhat exhausting. Like I was gone like most of, it was either February or March. It's kind of all a blur now. So I was gone for almost, an entire month. Now, part of it, the benefit is my wife and I work together. So we'll travel together. Sometimes we'll bring our daughter with us. So we've been able to make it work in that sense where we both get to go, on trips together and kind of make it a family event. So that's kind of how we make it work. I'm sure there'll be a point where it's like, we got to take specific opportunities, or it'll be limited at some point. And how do you kind of scale that? But I really do get energy from traveling. So that's kind of it's kind of one of those things that we've always done. In our marriage, we've always traveled a fair amount. We just got back from a 3-week trip in Asia, visiting a bunch of partners over there. So it's always, it's kind of been there, but it's not always easy. I was going to be in the Midwest this week. So we just got back from a 3-week trip. My daughter's birthday, then it was my birthday, and then it's my dad's birthday. And, I was going to be gone this week for another conference in the Midwest. And, before he took off, my assistant, Jess, she's great. She's like, I think that's too much travel, so having good people around you. Yeah. Just kind of say, hey, time out. Like, I don't think it's a good idea for you to be gone that much, especially after getting off this trip. And then you're going to be traveling again, in June. So, and listening to those people, because I could have been like, no, we're going. I'm going to be, 2 of my friends are there and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah.
Yeah, man.
So it's not always easy, but it's good.
Having those people looking out for your well-being, I think, is really key. It sounds like you have that. We've been talking about that over here with Rhino, because we've been going for about 8 years straight, and I pretty much never take a day off. It's really rare, and some of my most trusted team leaders over here were like, you really need to consider taking a sabbatical, because your whole thing depends on your creative abilities. And all the Maheen's over behind the computer shaking her head, and she just started working here like a month ago. So she's already seeing how I'm kind of, and it's like, for me being an entrepreneur, when we first started, there was, I just felt like I was having these ups and downs where I would like be riding really high, and like nothing could stop me seemingly in my mind for about 2 weeks. And then I'd have a day where I just really didn't want to get out of bed at all. And I was like, I don't even want to get up, and I hate everything. And then as we've grown though, it doesn't happen quite. I don't crash as hard, but I do have longer periods where I'm just kind of low and I just don't have the same drive. But then I'll regain it and I'll be good for, months at a time or whatever. But so I know that it's all good, but it's good to have those people around you to remind you that you're human. So
totally. No, you should take a sabbatical for sure. I took 2 weeks off, off the grid, no email, no communication with our leadership team or anybody really when our daughter was born. And I loved the 2 weeks so much that I took another 2 weeks off. I didn't come to the office. I mean, I started checking email a little bit, but I was like, this is great. And so, So that was, that was really, really, really healthy. And then I took about, and again, like I took 3 weeks off in Asia, but I was definitely not off because I had to be like on and meet with customers and whatnot. But I'll probably do the same when our next child is born. And this summer, I'll probably take off at least 2 weeks, if not 4. And I think for me, it was really hard to like disconnect at first of like, oh, I got to be involved and I got to like make this decision or that decision. And I think really the sign of true leadership is if you can step away for a week or 2 weeks or a month and the team runs, like it means that you've been able to delegate effectively. It means that you've empowered people to make their own decisions, of, hey, Brian's not here. How would he think about this? All right, let's go ahead and move on this, and then just setting up your company for success. Right. So like, I don't worry about it because the only person that's either wiring money or signing contracts besides myself is my CFO, and I trust her. So, that strategically that kind of helps out. Yeah.
It's funny because my wife and I sat down last night in the basement and watched the Greatest Showman movie. And,
oh yeah. How was that?
I liked it. I like musicals. It's a little poppy as far as musicals, but it's cool. Not Hugh Jackman's awesome. So, but there was a funny moment where his character says to Zac Efron, basically like he tells him like, you got this, and you're gonna go be the greatest showman. And my wife looks over at me and is like, see, he delegated to Zac Efron, and you need to delegate. I was like, do you honestly think I don't delegate? I have 20 people here. Like I delegate a lot of stuff. Anyway, sorry. Fun side note. So that's really awesome. A couple of the things I just want to touch on. Okay, so let me do this. I think one thing that you've done really well, again, sticking kind of on the story for just a quick second. People ask me a lot because I've done a few, at Rhino, we've done a few Kickstarter projects, and those are really, really interesting opportunities to see just how much social capital you have in your fan base or your community, to see how much people are willing to trust you with their money and trust that you're going to deliver on your promises. So we've done a few Kickstarters and raised money for short films and documentaries and stuff. And I feel like you've done a really good job getting people to believe in you and through your story. And I think that's a really compelling case for a lot of people. So sorry, I'm jumping around, but a lot of people, I'm mixing my story and yours. So I get a lot of people that want to say, hey, I'd love to hear you talk about how you get people to believe in you and earn that trust. So I'm going to ask you that question. How do you get people to buy in on you and your ideas? How do you think you've been able to do that?
It's a good question, for sure. And, we've had big successes on crowdfunding and big failures. People don't know about the failures because we took it down.
Yeah, nice.
But there's some good tidbits there on what not to do on crowdfunding. Which has been a very humbling lesson. But I think
it doesn't have to be crowdfunding. You can take it anywhere but a lot of you get a lot of trust in your brand. So how does that happen?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it comes down to like being, and it takes a tremendous amount of humility to do this, which I was not good at, kind of pre 2006. And so, and still it's like a work in progress, for sure. And I think it comes down to like being willing to be transparent to an extent, with your customers, and what I mean by that, like, the highs and lows that, as an entrepreneur, like most entrepreneurs feel these like unbelievable highs and these almost seemingly unbearable lows, right? Yep. To the point of like you better have a psychologist or coach or like somebody you can call and be like, yo, I'm like, I can't even get out of bed today, and never, not to the point of like, like suicide or anything, but like there are some dramatic stats, at least right now. And I think it's because entrepreneurship has like become popular over the last like 5 years or so. And so people want to do this, and really it takes a certain person who's willing to actually do it. And so I think, there's been this kind of growth in unfortunately, in the number of people who have committed suicide, who are quote unquote entrepreneurs, and not a lot of people are talking about it, which is too bad, because it is one of the hardest things that you will do ever. I mean, raising a human is hard, for sure. Yeah. There's challenges there, but the amount of stress that goes on with running a company. And so what I mean by like kind of transparent, like,
no, I get it.
I don't need to share with my followers like the lows, right? Like nobody wants to like be involved with that.
Well, your close friends do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the close friends, like, I'm talking like social media and like kind of building that transparency, like being transparent in the right places, maybe how I should phrase that. Where like I have 3 individuals who all own their own companies, and we have a secret code that we can't share with anybody else. And if anybody says that secret code over text or call, or whatever, whatever form of communication, the bat symbol, right? Somebody has to call them back within 5 minutes. Is just kind of the thing. And we've all activated it. Like in the last 5 years, we've all activated it, because there's moments where you're like, holy smokes, like, I don't know how I'm gonna get through this. And I need to talk to somebody who's not going to judge me. They're going to listen, and they're going to hopefully provide some sort of wisdom, and even if they don't have wisdom, to be like, dude, I feel you and I'm here. I don't know how I can help you, but thanks for sharing. Like, if you don't have those people, get them in your life, because it's so important. Yeah. But kind of moving to like the brand side of things, how do people follow us? How are they willing to trust us, with their money? And I think it comes down to, being open and transparent, and really, because that allows you to be your genuine self. And I think at a human level, right? Like we all want to connect to people. Yep. We want to connect to people that are real. They have emotions. They have ideas. And, again, that's like kind of why we're sharing my story a bit more, is like people want to connect with that. And so I think for our brand, we've been able to kind of connect at a deeper level than some of our competitors, perhaps, is that we're being authentic, we're being real, we're being transparent. When we mess up, like, you got to own it. And it's hard. Like I remember we had a issue with a product launch years and years ago with our first insulated growler. Like the lid was a total disaster. People weren't happy. They couldn't open it. It was like the worst product experience ever. And it was going to cost us a bunch of money to retool, air freight, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, we owned it. We emailed everybody and said, hey, guess what? We totally messed up on this. We're fixing it. Here's how we're fixing it. We will update you when we have more information. So like, thanks for being patient. And it's amazing how much people just like appreciate being in the know. Yep. Like it's weird that our gut reaction is like, let's not talk about it. Hopefully it'll just like blow over. Yep.
They won't notice reality, it's messed up.
Yeah, they won't notice. Yeah. And in reality, no, they notice. But what are you going to do about it? Right. And I think, if you look at people's failures, the ones that fail the most, the ones that try to cover it up. A good example is one of our competitors, SIG, 2009, 2010, independent testing showed that their plastic liner in their bottles had BPA in it. And what they did is they literally lied about it. They literally sent out a memo from their CEO saying that the independent testing was wrong, or that they didn't have BPA in it. And then more testing came out that showed that they were lying. So they like got caught lying. And then what happened was they still like refused to like replace all the bottles, probably because they're like, that'll cost an arm and a leg and like be really expensive. Guess what? They ended up filing bankruptcy in the US because they lied, and then everybody else kicked them out. Wow. Like it was wild.
Yeah, man. And you don't want people to fail, but it it's like there's order in the universe when someone has to come to justice for not being honest with something like that. So I'm sure, there's a lot more to it. I don't know those guys at all, but it's compelling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's, it's a good reminder to be like, man, you got to be open and honest and really just own up to it. And I think that it leads to more success. And what I mean by that is like, that was probably not the first lie that this competitor had been involved with, so like they didn't just get there on that day. There were probably things that happened before that where like, they probably knew that liner was not the right liner, but they were like, it's going to be okay. Or no one will find out about it or whatever. Or like we're having so much success, it doesn't matter. So like, that's why you got to constantly like evaluate yourself and be like, are we being the best possible self? Because if you start lying, it needs the next lie, you know what I mean? So it's
being faithful in the small. So something we talk about a lot here is how when in a creative company, there's almost always the opportunity for something to go wrong, and project to project, there can always be an opportunity for something to go wrong. So we've kind of almost come to embrace it when there is a problem, because it's almost like, oh boy, this is awesome. We get to show them how we handle problems, and that allows us to grow so much, earn so much more trust than if everything just always worked perfectly and they were always happy. It's like when you're in a relationship and someone says, oh, we never fight. You know that, well, you're probably not being totally sincere. You really haven't encountered a true conflict yet. So we embrace the opportunity.
They're either lying or they don't have a good relationship.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Bingo.
No, that's exactly right. We had an issue where, quite recently, actually this year, where we sent out a bunch of product to a customer and ended up having like a 90% error rate on this product. And
wow.
First of all, it's super uncommon. We had delivered for this customer for years. And so our team, without even, because I wasn't involved on the account, without even me prompting, 2 of our VPs got on a plane, flew to the customer, not just to say, hey, like, is it actually this high, but to understand what was the issue? How did it get to this? And then I flew down and met with the team at the headquarters and sat down and just said, hey, you know what? This is totally on us. We're still evaluating how this happened. We want to say that it won't happen again. This specific issue should not happen again because we're going to correct it. But we will make this right, period, end of story. We're sorry it happened. We know it's going to slow down business, but we will make this right. And they were like, no one's ever done this before. They're like, we worked with this other competitor of yours and they tried to cover up that they had this quality control issue, and you guys just owned it and you fixed it. And guess what? The next day they placed like another purchase order for the future business, and it's like, that's how you have to show up. But it's not easy. I'm going to this meeting thinking like, oh my gosh, we're going to lose this account. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh man. I know that feeling.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, I know we're running low on time. I just want to give you an opportunity to let us know like what's next for you guys. Anything you can share that's exciting that's coming up. Feel free to share that. And I also want to know where people can find you more online.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on. It's always good to be able to share kind of knowledge and insights and hopefully encourage other people out there who are going through the same thing or want to start going through, what it's like to be an entrepreneur. It's the best thing you'll ever do. It's definitely not the easiest, but like I said, most things worthwhile in life are not easy. So
that's right.
It's good. But you can, we're primarily engaging on Instagram, is where most of our content lives these days. We've got a summer packed full of great product launches coming out. We've got products in the beer and coffee space, but, we're looking at some stuff in the wine category, the cocktail category, that'll be coming out later this year.
Nice.
So new products, which is super exciting. And then I'm trying to think of what else. We just crossed $600,000 in granting, since inception, which is pretty cool.
Sure.
So we've been celebrating that. But MiiR.com, the website, we keep it fresh, even though a lot of traction on social media, we still pay attention to our website.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So we're developing some good content. Follow us on MiiR.com, @MiiR on Instagram. You can follow me, Bryan Papé, on Instagram. It's I actually deleted my Facebook account a while ago. So I know everyone's like, well, yeah, but Instagram is owned by Facebook. I'm like, I'm fully aware.
Yeah.
But it's my method of choice.
Yeah. Nice. Well, cool, man. Super appreciate your time. It's been really good for me. I love doing this because I get to meet new people, but I get to hear from them on a personal level and kind of connect with them on this a thing that I wish I had when we were starting, just the opportunity to hear more from actual human beings willing to be honest and transparent, like you said. So very cool, man. Appreciate that.
Happy to jump on. So thanks for hosting us.
Right on. Thank you, Brian.
Right on. Yeah, have a good
brother.
rest of your day.
You too.
All right, thanks. All right.